I am here in Medjugorje. We are next to Apparition Hill, which is in the back. You see in the form of the rosary, the lights. And I'm with, what's your name?
James Roach.
And where are you from?
I'm from Waterloo, Iowa, USA.
And you said you came here 2001?
2001.
And what happened?
Well, my mom first paid me a visit
Mm-hmm.
in 2001 on about 3 weeks before they were coming here. And I was away from the faith for 25 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Goes back to that incident when I was an altar boy and all of a sudden told I could not serve anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And my ears and eyes went shut to the faith. So I started falling away from the church ever since that point. Up until 2001, Mom paid me a visit. And, well, I needed a passport for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it usually takes 4 to 6 weeks. Well, I got it in 6 days. So the spirit was not to be denied.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, also 25 years removed from the faith, says, you're not going over halfway around the world to some place for 10 days and 10 nights. We had never spent one night apart for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm going to have a chance to go is because a parishioner has a heart condition and is not able to go. The doctors advised him not to. And I kind of told Mom I'd be interested in going, primarily interested in seeing a new culture, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so she says, well, I'll get on the phone and tell her you can't go. I said, okay. She gets on the phone. I guess he can go. She can't believe the words coming out of her mouth, but the spirit's not to be denied.
Mm-hmm.
So we take off, and it's a Sunday evening when we get in. And the certain fella, let's see, his dad was the leader of the group. They came 2 years earlier, and it was placed on his heart because we were staying at Ivan Dragicevich's house,
Mm-hmm.
the visionary.
The visionary.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was placed on Stanley Two's heart that he should start a prayer group when he got back to our parish. Mm-hmm. It just so happens to be the parish that I grew up in, mm-hmm. Blessed Sacrament. And so I'm, concerned about their health because Mom's in her early 70s. My stepdad's 82 or 3, but still most, interested in seeing new cultures. So, but we get over here and they're ready to go up on Apparition Hill on Monday morning. And so they're going to do the Joyful Mysteries. Now, I never owned a rosary in my life. And they said, well, we're getting up at 6 o'clock. We're only 5 minutes away from Yvonne's house. And I said, well, I'm used to getting up work, early for work anyway. Mm-hmm. So I say, yeah, I'll get up. Kind of curious. And we get up there about 6:15, 6:20. They start the Joyful Mysteries. I'm kind of holding back. I'm counting with my fingers, Mm-hmm. And next comes the second Joyful Mystery, the Visitation. Mm-hmm. Okay, first of all, here, Mom paid me a visit. I'm visiting a foreign nation, and I'm asked to lead the visitation. Well, I think to myself, well, I can't be too tough, right? So I said, yeah, I can do this. So they announced the visitation, and then the Our Father, well, I hadn't prayed in 25 plus years. I do not know the words to the Our Father. Mm-hmm. So while the pilgrims standing next to me are helping me with the Our Father, because nobody knew where I was spiritually, which was pretty much nowhere, mm-hmm. all these negative emotions started billowing up and pouring out, like a little bit of embarrassment, mm-hmm. a little anger, resentment, just uncomfortable for the most part. And what am I doing here anyway, right? So then the Our Father ends, and then I'm supposed to start with the Hail Marys. Well, I just heard 10 of them, so I remember the first part of the first half. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, and then
finito.
So they're helping me with Blessed Art Thou, which is the visitation itself. Mm-hmm. All these negative emotions stop suddenly. And instantly, nothing but, I can tell you now, it was divine love that just started pouring in. Now, if you could the best way I can explain it, because I can't do it in words, mm-hmm. is if you can imagine a rapid rushing river just flowing through your body continuously, nonstop, throughout that whole decade. Mm-hmm. I was completely unaware of my surroundings. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even feel my feet on the ground. I was nowhere in this world. Mm-hmm. And I did not want it to end. Why would I? Mm-hmm. I'm in complete supernatural rapture. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if God gave me the grace to sense that it would end, but I did sense it coming to an end. And then when it finally did, and this is on August 10th, Feast of St. Lawrence, the great deacon, turned me over. I'm done on this side. The sun's coming up at 6:30 in the morning. So I look up and the skies, the blues are bluer than blue, the greens are greener than green, the browns are browner than brown. It's as if the scales just fell off my eyes too. And the interesting thing about it is, and I titled my story, God's Perfect Timing. Okay, this was 6:30 on a Monday morning. I was biologically born at 6:30 on a Monday morning. That's perfect timing.
Yeah.
And then thanks, Ma, because if it wasn't for her visit, I wouldn't be there and I wouldn't be where I am today. So the only thing I could think about was, as we're going up, and we went all the way up through the sorrowful and down through the glorious, was as soon as we got down there, I was going to make a beeline to that rosary shop I remember seeing over at the beginning. Her name was Mara, beautiful lady too, and purchased my first rosary. And just beautiful things happened throughout that time. I'm so happy that it happened at the early on. There was a couple there, Allison and Roger Fleming. They're from St. Louis. Allison has taken many pilgrims there, but she just happened to just join our group. And they knew what happened to me, kind of, and they wanted me to go see Nancy and Patrick Latta, who they were still building quite a bit onto that
castle.
Yes, it's a retreat center for the religious primarily. And so we went over there and just fantastic encounter with them, had a meal with them and whatnot. And this is a preface to where I am today as a secular Franciscan. That's the Tao. And Third Order Franciscans. And because when we were sitting there talking, and I will tell you that Roger Fleming was discerning the priesthood at the time. And today he is a priest, glad to say, holding these styrofoam cups with water in them, about half full. All of a sudden, I think they're called hawk moths. They're almost like a hummingbird. Came zooming around and he landed right on my cup, took his proboscis and just dipped it in there and took a drink. Everybody's sitting there looking like, wow, look at that. Look at Jim's cup, And looking back on it, I can see where, there's a connection with creation there and St. Francis,
Yes.
So I can see that connection there. So it's just wonderful. But anyhow, on my way back, I mean, and we can't go through the daily things that went on, but on the way back, I knew that, my wife was 25 years removed from the faith like I was. And it was placed on my heart that she would have to come back here again with me. And it was a good thing because when I got home, I found out later, though, this was later on, that my wife Joyce was about ready to kick me out of the house. I was so on fire, as you can imagine. But God gave me the grace to be patient with her. And I said, Joyce, we got to at least go with this prayer group people that I've been with the last 10 days. And let's just go to the prayer group to begin with, which they meet every Thursday. So we started doing that. And we started going to Mass. I didn't care which church. I grew up at Blessed Sacrament, and she grew up at St. Edward's. And we just bounced around for like the next 8 months till next spring. And then there was a position opening up at Blessed Sacrament, Old Parish, where the priest needed someone to clean the rectory. And Joyce, she was helping homebound and that kind of stuff. And she says, I got time to do that. So then we decided we had to join the church. So we joined the parish I actually started up with. So anyhow, then Joyce was being drawn in back into the faith. And we got involved with this order called the Intercessors of the Lamb, which centered on those that were interested in Marian groups. And they met every year in Omaha around the 4th of July time. So we got involved with that, and that's based on St. Ignatius Loyola's teachings. So meditation, contemplation. Joyce was given a certain gift. You could say they were communication from the Lord, Blessed Mother Mary, but they were more or less personal meditations and whatnot, messages. And finally, 3 years later, like I said, 2004 came around and the group was ready to go back to Medjugorje. And this is when Joyce was asked to come, come on, Joyce, what do you say? Let's go over there. And she says, and Joyce is just so innocent and cute this way, but she says, yeah, but I'm so nervous about going over the ocean because I can't swim. What if the plane goes down, Well, Joyce, you're not worried about having been able to swim, of course, but that's just her humor, It's just really good humor.
Beautiful,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But she was actually receiving these messages, and Our Lady told her that she would don't need to be afraid to go over there. I'll take care of you. Not only that, but you will see me there. Wow! So you can imagine how excited we are. I wonder how that's going to happen, what that's going to look like. So we get over here, and there's about 6 of us out of the 20 or so that towards evening we were going to go to St. James Church. And the sun was just starting to set. Our Lady told Joyce that she would see her over a building. So now I didn't see Miracle Sun or my rosary didn't change gold or any of that. In 01, that was all interior conversion. But when we're walking along, just coming out of the Bianca Beachy over here, we suddenly all stop at the same time and we see the Miracle Sun. So some of us, I think 3 of them seen it before, but
the spinning
and the different, some people see colors coming off, others see the pulsating. I just saw the spinning, and then also if you picture yourself a clock, at 7 o'clock, there was a shadowy figure of Our Lady. And it was over what turned out to be Yakov's parents' house, had a flat rooftop on it. And Joyce was the only one that saw that. And so Our Lady revealed herself through the power of God, that was confirmation there of her connection with Mary. And so that was just awesome. And so then we come back, and so we're at Blessed Sacrament now, and I feel, and the Lord might be calling me to the diaconate. So I did take 1 year of formation of that, and it came down to the time where they had to really decide on whether Joyce was going to be able to accompany me on that. If the spouse comes right along with you. And she was the POA for her mom. She has Alzheimer's. It looked like it was just Joyce wasn't going to be able to put in the time for it, so they thought it wasn't best for me to come in at that time. So that ended, but I thank the Lord for giving me a taste of that formation. And as it turned out, we had a retreat at a martyr's retreat house, it was called, up in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and it was they ended up closing the place, but before that happened, we were one of the last ones to have a retreat there, and some secular Franciscans were there. But before the retreat even started, I saw a pamphlet on the Franciscans, and so I grabbed that. I felt drawn to it right off the bat. And towards the end of the retreat, when it was ending, they came by and they handed these pamphlets out. I said, I already got one, and I'll see you in 1 month, right? And so we went a month later, and myself and a few of them that were there, and so we felt drawn by our Lord through Francis, and came into the order, and it's a 3-year formation period, and you're professed into the order. So I am a secular Franciscan, 3rd order Franciscan now, and I was so blessed that I just want to give back, because I finally, at that moment there on the conversion, I really knew God existed for one thing, but I also knew that He loved me so dearly, that He's just so merciful and loving and forgiving, that I would just want to give back, do whatever He willed me to do. And so I've just been really involved in all the ministries you can imagine that the church offers, lector, cantor, prayer group leaders. We're involved in the Eucharistic adoration. It's a perpetual adoration at maybe the only high school in the country. I'm not sure, but it's at our Catholic high school.
Wow, beautiful.
And we're hourly coordinators for a particular hour. And I picked the 7 o'clock hour because that was the time on Friday night, because at the time, before my conversion, I was living for Fridays and working to live, to go out and just party it up. And it was always around that 7 o'clock hour. So now I'm in the adoration chapel. And an interesting thing also that came full circle, so to speak, is, remember that time I told you about not being able to serve as an altar boy? Well, it just so happens that I'm involved with funerals and helping out in that area, and actually am serving Mass at funerals now. So here I am back up on the altar serving again as where it all started, where I started to shut down and drift away from the church and to the point of the conversion, and now I'm back on the altar as a server again. That's just full circle.
Beautiful. And how often have you come back here now?
Okay, so conversion 01, and then 3 years later, Joyce and I in the group in 04, and then I was just really busy with I had to learn like St. Paul did.
Mm-hmm.
He studied for like 10 plus years. Well, I, from the 5th grade on, did not understand the faith. So I had to delve in. And I tell you, the catechism was one of the most beautiful things I read.
Yeah.
It was so fruitful.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible, of course, cover to cover. And I just kept on reading on my brother. He's a priest, and he got me involved with the saints. And I was just delved into, I have a proliferary of saints that
Mm-hmm.
every day now, and just seeing how they live their lives. Ordinary people with extraordinary lives. You know,
Yes.
that's what they are.
You have got a favorite saint?
Yes, well, St. Lawrence, because of my conversion.
Yeah, the day, no?
But St. Francis, you know, I mean, now.
Mm-hmm.
And but Joseph is always there right after Mary. I just can't. After Mary, you got to go to Joseph, and then it's Lawrence and Francis.
Unbelievable how Lawrence and Francis.
Yeah.
And okay, so it's 2004, and then you
And
started.
then yes,
and
so
what
then
happened
19 years went by, because I just retired 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So just involved in learning the faith and then serving the church.
Mm-hmm.
It just flew by.
Mm-hmm.
The seed was so fruitful that I never really felt the need to come back here.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like I was just called to go ahead, carry it out, evangelize, and spread the good news,
Mm-hmm.
which I have been doing. And but like I said, there was an opportunity that came up. My nephew, who was a priest,
Mm-hmm.
Father Thomas Heathershaw, he's up in Charles City. The parishioners up there in Charles City want to go to Medjugorje, and they asked Father Tom to come along.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found that out, I said, I got to go with Father Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that all got arranged. So we came in May.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even though it rained every day, which it did, it was such unusual. It rained 25 out of the 30 days, I guess. Even the taxi drivers are saying, this is not right. This is not normal.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it couldn't dampen the spiritual encounters, and the more every time you come here, you draw closer to Mary's Immaculate Heart, which of course leads you to Christ. So it's always fruitful and beneficial to come, regardless of the weather. But it would have been nice to have, it's just a little more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So then on my way back, Father Tommy says, Father Joseph Sevchik is coming in October. And I got to know Father Joseph Sevchik he was from Cedar Falls, St. Patrick's, which is right next to Waterloo, and knew him going through the seminary. Father Tommy has been a priest for 4 years now, and Father Joseph for 3. So I knew Father Joseph through the seminary encounters. They were best friends. And I got to know his family because I actually cantor the Divine Mercy Chaplet every Sunday, because our prayer group does the Divine Mercy Chaplet at the 3 o'clock hour. A prayer group member was having to move back to Illinois because she was going blind, unfortunately, but she wanted the chaplet to continue there at her parish. And so then I said I would do that on Divine Mercy Sunday for her. It just so happens that Father Joseph's mother, Lisa Sevchik, plays the organ there and has been for like 30 years. And so she plays the organ, I sing, and so that's how that happens. And then I got to know her husband, Joseph's father, Joel Sr., and he has a daughter, Brenda, at the time, and she actually cantored with me on one of those Sundays before she headed off to college. So it's just, I just knew it. And Father Joseph is just such a really good, holy priest in my eyes. And so I said, I've got to come back again. And Joyce I thought, Joyce, she doesn't like to be left alone that long, but bless her heart, you know, she let me come in May, and now I've got to ask her if I can go again in October. It's been 19 years since I've been here, and now I'm going twice in the same year. But yeah, she said okay. So she knew why.
You know what the experience is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Right. She has physical illnesses now that doesn't allow her to travel great distances, so she will probably never come back here. But
what is amazing, you came back. You had the conversion, and you led the family. Your wife, she came back with you afterwards to the Catholic faith, no?
Yes.
And I think that's why maybe you have the struggle that they want to destroy manhood, because the man guides. No, what I learned, the man is the bishop of the family, and if the identity of manhood is destroyed, then the family goes like wild, no? And
everything unwinds then.
Unwinds then, you know. That sounds to me, when you said you came back, you had this, and gently you guided her, or it happened through you, no? It's so beautiful. I think this is a lesson for all of us, for man. You know, what is the role we have?
And you know, we were married in 1989, so this is like way before.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived, like I said, for Friday nights out.
Mm-hmm.
And the summer times, there was nothing but softball.
Mm-hmm.
And what goes with softball? Beer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nothing but softball,
Oh,
beer
beer. Uh-huh.
for the summers, and then just living for the Fridays through the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And, but Joyce and I knew that we wanted our marriage blessed.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, Father Ed,
Mm-hmm.
he's a SOLT,
Mm-hmm.
Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity, missionary priest, and he was down there in
Beautiful.
Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, across from Laredo,
Salt,
Texas.
no? Salt.
Salt, yes.
It's Sister Miriam.
Yes, there you have it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Father James Flanagan founded the order,
Yeah.
who just passed away, I think, maybe, well, it seems like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I think. He founded the order in 1958, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
But he came up from Mexico to marry us
Mm-hmm.
in 2006.
Yeah.
And there's a city, Gilbertville,
Mm-hmm.
outside of South Waterloo, and has Immaculate Conception Church,
Mm-hmm.
east of Waterloo, I should say. And I wanted to get married. We wanted to get married in a Marian titled church, so Immaculate Conception, can't get any better.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he came up, and it was January 11th, dead of winter, but all the poinsettias from Christmas were still up there at the altar, and
Beautiful.
it turned out to be a sunny, cold day, but it was nice and sunny. It's
Uh-huh.
perfect.
Wow.
And so we had our marriage blessed back into the church.
Uh-huh.
I did not have to go through an annulment because I was married previously.
Mm-hmm.
After I got out of the Marine Corps,
Mm-hmm.
I married right away into my own apartment
Mm-hmm.
by a female magistrate.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even recognized as a legitimate marriage in the eyes of the Catholic Church. So I didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, I had to go through an annulment.
Mm-hmm.
She got married in the church back then, but unfortunately to someone who was very abusive,
Mm-hmm.
both physically and spiritually. So she had to go, unfortunately for her, to bring back all these memories of severe abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
She reminds me of St. Rita of Cascia.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the saint of the impossible.
She had 2 children, 2 boys, just like my wife had 2 boys,
Mm-hmm.
and big problems between them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but that's also for people, who are desperate. There is the chance of annulment as well,
right.
People don't know about this, We have these discussions now about marriage and marriage, but the church is a church of order and has proper orders to look at things, what is truthful, no?
Yes.
People should know that there is a chance to do an annulment as well,
Yes.
Maybe somebody watching now.
And they think, we're bounded by these commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you enjoy being under these commandments? Well, the commandments, if they knew,
mm-hmm.
they realize that actually set you free.
Yeah.
You have this
our
joy,
good.
this peace. But
Yes.
we have to have order.
Yeah.
And I look at the world today without the order.
Yeah. It's no more
chaos.
fun. It's chaos, and everybody gets to see it more and more now, no?
But we had our wedding
mm-hmm.
blessed then by my own brother, and it was just awesome. But and pray for my brother, Father Ed.
We will. Also, people are watching, please pray for the priest and for Father Ed.
Primarily because he was in a horrible car accident.
Wow.
Back in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
He always came up on the 4th of July to visit.
Mm-hmm.
And him and his friend, Father Michael, came up together, and he dropped Father Michael off in Kansas City because he had a sibling there. His only sibling was his sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then Father Ed came up to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then on his way back, he picked up Father Michael. And usually Father Ed drives all the time because he's like me. I got to drive all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, I can't remember what it was, but Father Michael insisted. And so he gave in. They get south of, just south of San Antonio, about a half hour. Just got done raining. The sun's going down. It's getting dark. A semi jackknife's in front of them, going 75 miles an hour. And they go underneath the tail end of that. And it just sheared off the top of the car. Father Michael was killed outright. The only reason my brother survived because he happened to be reclining in the seat at the time. And then the picture showed all you can see is a collar there in the car. And know that it's a priest sitting in there on the passenger side. So who knows how long it took before they got the call to get down there, extracted from the car. But he doesn't remember anything except when he was wheeled into the hospital. So probably a good couple hours went by And then 6, 7 years later, schizophrenia started settling and from the brain trauma way back 7, 8 years ago. And now dementia has settled in. And he was born in 60, so he's only 62, 63 years old, but very fluent, 4 languages, and
Wow.
and he just loved Our Lady. He was just a beautiful priest. But the good thing is he's happy in his own world that he's in now. That's the best we can look at it now.
We pray for him and all the priests. We should not forget that, no?
Certainly.
Yes, absolutely. Especially, this is important that we don't forget them. They chose to give everything, and we judge them so harshly, so hard. That's what my brother always said. He said, like, can't believe they are the Supermans. They give everything. They follow, and we judge them so hard.
And last night I had just, we realized that they're servants. They serve the people. But last night and there's a group of 18 of us here, and half of them never been here before, and including Father Joseph. And he was up there at the altar, of course, and all of them stated they'd never seen such a monstrance so huge as this monstrance is on the altar there behind St. James Church. And but at the communion was ending, and we were sitting way in the back in the bleachers, sit-down bleachers way in the back, and I just saw like 6, 7, 8 priests coming back up to the altar all at the same time, and it just struck me, and I just really got quite emotional about how they are really serving the church. They're feeding us. They just fed us with the bread of life. The life that keeps on giving.
They are the true Superman. They bring Christ down to earth. No?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what is your conclusion now about Medjugorje? You are here again, and what would you tell people why to come to Medjugorje one time?
For peace, primarily, your heart will be so peaceful. It is almost going like back into not necessarily a different world, but society compared to any other society in the world. It's just one of a kind. And I think it's Mary's presence through Christ working through all the priests that are here. And everyone, you never see any other place that I've been in my life where you pass people and they're praying the rosary as they're walking along to the next destination. So people are constantly praying. And it's just knowing that Mary brings you closer. And as you go closer to Mary, she leads you to Christ. And nothing gets any better than that. And so you keep growing on your faith. Your faith you can never find a limit to your faith or to the wonders, enjoyment of your life. We all have that goal to reach the ultimate, but at the same time, there's no reason that God wants you to enjoy this life that you have to the fullest.
Yes, that's why Christ came.
And you can reach different levels each time you come here. My feet have never touched the ground ever since that day on Mount Poverdo. And they never will. From that moment on and into eternity, they'll never feel that ground again. That's an awesome thought.
Wow. What can I say? Thank you so much for that beautiful interview.
You're welcome.